Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Understable Discourse, your go-to place for all the best disc golf content, stats, storylines, whatever it may be in disc golf. But today we have a bit of an interesting episode for you, as we're kind of, we're gearing into the end of the season, and with only a few events left, a lot of conversation on people's minds are related to end-of-season topics, and one of those big topics are the end-of-season awards. You hear it talked about on, all the different podcasts about who's going to win Player of the Year for FPO, but that kind of led me down a bit of a rabbit hole of when I was preparing the other night for debate night. I took a look at, the website for the Disc Golf Pro Tour to see kind of what the criteria of everything is, and I realized that they're a little bit behind on their current projections for who's going to finish where, and I thought it'd be very interesting to sit down and take a look at the different awards and to try to make some predictions of my own. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to take a look at 4 specific awards: the Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year, the Most Improved Player, and the Comeback Player of the Year. So let's get into it. So the first award we're going to talk about is, the Player of the Year, arguably the biggest award of these 4, sometimes the easiest to determine and sometimes a very, very difficult award to determine. In fact, we'll see that here with this one specifically, but to be eligible to win Player of the Year, you have to have played in more than one DGPT or Pro Major event for the PDGA, and only tour card holders can win the Player of the Year. The voting is very simple. 50% of the vote goes to the media and 50% goes to the tour card holders. So that means that the fans don't really have any say in this one. It goes down to the players themselves, specifically the tour card holders, and the media. So people who are within disc golf media, whether that be the guys who are making the actual coverage or some people who are in the reporting media. And hopefully someday we'll work our way up the ladder and we'll get ourselves a media vote over here at Understable Discourse. But until then, we can speculate as best we possibly can. But when it comes to the MPO field, I don't think I have to tell anyone this. It's not really a surprise, but Gannon Buhr's going to win this award. There's very little I think that anyone can do to take this award from Gannon, especially being the world champion. He has got 6 wins. He's tied for the highest rating ever, which technically has no context towards the vote, but because it's the media and other members of the tour card group voting, that might actually matter a little bit to them. But honestly, there's no contest in my mind that Gannon is going to win Player of the Year for the MPO field. So I decided to go down a little thought experiment of if Gannon could not win, let's say Gannon wasn't a tour card holder for some reason, of everyone else in their current seasons, who would win? And for me, that comes down to one of 2 people, and that would be Niklas Antala and Calvin Heimberg. And I put this question out to a couple different Discord chats that I'm in, and I got some very heated discussion about these 2 players, specifically because their resumes are kind of different. First we'll look at Niklas. Niklas has 3 wins this year at the Open at Austin, Music City Open, and the Ale Open. His average finish position was 13.07, and he has a top 10 rate of 57%. Meanwhile, Calvin only has 1 singular win this year, but it is a major win at the European Disc Golf Festival. His average finish is 7.76, which is, a little less than, a little more than half of what Niklas's is, and a top 10 rate of 88%, which is about 30% better than Niklas. So the question that I kind of posed is, do you take the major win and generally more consistent play to be more valuable over the 3 Elite Series wins? And it sparked, like I said, some heated debate on what was more important. How many wins in the Elite Series during the year equal a major win, and a lot of, very interesting conversation. We talked about strength of field. Technically, the European Disc Golf Festival was the 2nd highest field strength event this year, second only to the World Championships, but not too far down the list. Believe it or not, the Open at Austin was considered one of the hardest events to win based on strength of field, and it was a DGPT Plus event. So considering all those factors, I think a Plus event win and the 2 other wins just nods out Calvin on this one. So I think of the 2, I'm going to have to pick Niklas, even though I think you could make an argument for Calvin based upon the major. The question that would be then, if Calvin had won world championships and that was his only major, would that be enough to tip the scales, because the argument can be made that a lot of players on tour, if you ask them, would you trade in your 3 wins this season for a world championship? Most of them would probably say yes. The question is, would you trade in your 3 wins for a disc golf or for a European disc golf festival win? I don't know. That's a good question. Let me know what you think down in the comments about that one, because I think that's going to be an interesting conversation topic. But let's move on to like an actual real current, conundrum, which is the FPO side of Player of the Year. This past weekend, Missy Gannon won D-Glow, and that really, really complicates this Player of the Year conversation, because you have 4, I think, legitimate contenders and one who is kind of a wild card contender who could win this whole thing. I mean, right now you've got Silva and Holland, who have the advantage in the fact that both of them have 4 wins on the season. Silva has a major win, so that I would say between the two of them, that kind of pushes Silva ahead of Holland. However, Holland has played really, really well this year, but arguably so has Silva. Technically, even though we know that Holland has stayed underneath 5th place for most of the year, technically Silva Saarinen's average finish is better at 3.79 compared to Holland's 5.12. So I think Silva currently has an advantage over Holland, and we didn't see either one of them take the win this past weekend. Not that far behind them, you've got Missy Gannon and Owen Scoggins, who both have major wins, Owen being a world champion, Missy being the winner of the Champions Cup. But Missy has 2 other wins aside from that, to only 1 for Owen. And another thing to keep in mind is that both Missy and Owen are wildly popular players, and with this being, media vote and other tour card holders, popularity can play into it a little bit. We've seen in the past how that's kind of, come into the argument to a certain degree. So who's to say if Missy or Owen, if one of them takes another win, if Owen comes out and wins Green Mountain, then this is going to get very complicated. If Missy wins Green Mountain Championship, I think that's great for her. I think if Holland or Silva take a win, that could be what either of them need to separate themselves from the group. But it is an absolute, heated race between the 4 of them. And so you may be asking, well, what about Kristen? Technically, if you look at most projections for Player of the Year, Kristen is currently in 2nd place right now, but Kristen's not playing the rest of the year. She just pulled out of U.S. Women's. I don't think we can really count her in this conversation, so I'm going to remove her from that. My wild card is Evelina, who I know is kind of crazy, because Evelina has only played 5 events this year outside of majors, and only one of them being a plus event. She's currently sitting in 11th place overall. How on earth could she be Player of the Year? Well, she does have 2 wins, with one of them being a major, winning U.S. Women. So with 2 wins on tour, she kind of has to be in the conversation a little bit. The reason I'm calling her a wild card is because she's only played 5 events. So if Evelina were to come out and she were to win Green Mountain, and then she goes on to win MVP, is that enough? Is that 4 wins, 2 in the playoff, 1 major? Is that enough to get her the overall Player of the Year conversation, despite how little she's played? What if she comes out and she wins all 3, or she wins Green Mountain and the Tour Championship? I think I'm calling her a wild card, because even though she hasn't played very much, she could essentially give herself Player of the Year if she were to dominate on this closing stretch. Do I think she's going to do it? No, I don't think she's going to do it. But could it happen? Yes. So I'm going to count her in as a dark horse wild card for Player of the Year. But if I have to pick right now, take away any feelings about whether a player is more likable, less likable, whatever, I feel like I have to give the nod to Silva. She has the major win. Is it the World Championship? No, it certainly isn't. However, it feels like in the fields that Silva has played against, she has beaten the most significant competitors, having 4 wins, one of them being a major. I think I've got to give, if it ends right now, if they don't play anymore, it's got to be Silva. But with 3 events to go, honestly, I could see any one of the 4 of them winning. I would say of the 4, you probably have Silva and Holland with the best chance, Missy right there behind, and Owen is probably the smallest chance of the 4, but if she wins GMC, all bets are off. So best of luck picking between the 4 of those ladies. It's going to be a tough one. Now, next up, we have the Rookie of the Year, which is a really interesting award to look at. To be eligible to win Rookie of the Year, you must be in your rookie season, which is defined by meeting one of the following criteria, which is begin the season as a tour card holder for the first time, or play 6 or more World Standings points events in a single year, or complete your 10th World Standing points event ever, or qualify for the Tour Championship. So you got to do one of those things. And the voting for this is a little bit different. The media vote is 33%, your World Standings in the DGPT, 33%, and Tour Card Holder vote is 33%. Now, once again, this kind of comes down to only a few players. For the FPO, this to me is a pretty easy pick, but it's basically a 3-horse race between Rebecca Dawn, Taylor Chosick, and Ida Nesse. And Ida definitely has the most top 10s of all of them at 5. However, she kind of has only played really the European events to a certain degree. And Rebecca Dawn has had an absolutely incredible season, getting 4th at Ledgestone, 4th at the Discmania Challenge, 8th at the Preserve, and her average finish of 16.5. I think, Taylor's played pretty well, but she hasn't kind of put herself in those discussions very much. She had a great finish at the Northwest Championship, but I'm going to say this has to be Rebecca Dawn. The number of times this year that we've heard her being in contention and having these crazy awesome rounds, it's got to be Rebecca Dawn of those 3. But incredible play this year from Ida and Taylor. On the MPO side, there is a bit of a race between 2 people. And to me, not just to me, but according to the points tracker for Rookie of the Year, it's really coming down to Harry Chase and Rasmus Sakaripi. And Harry, technically of the 2 of them, has played in a couple more events. However, Rasmus has not played just European events. He's played a number of US events as well this year. So it's, and I don't want to say that just because you haven't played US events, you can't win these awards. It's just to come over and play in the larger, generally more competitive fields. It's a bit of a notch in the belt for when we look at who's going to win this stuff. Harry has an average finish of 42.8 and a 69% cash rate, and Rasmus has an average finish of 36.1 and a 73% cash rate, which is, both of those are just slightly better than Harry. You could argue that Harry has played in more competitive events than Rasmus has over the course of the year, but I mean, they've both played in Worlds, and Rasmus had a pretty incredible Worlds finish. I believe he was in the top 20 or even the top 15 at Worlds. So right now, if things were to stop, I'm going to have to give the nod to Rasmus in this case, but I think this is still anyone's game with a few events left. Moving on to the Most Improved Award. This is for the player who improves the most from basically last year to this year. And to be eligible for this, you have to play in more than one DGPT event or PDGA Pro Major, and you have to be a tour card holder. I would love to see some of these awards go to non-tour card holders, but that's just my personal opinion. But this is a tour card holder situation, and the voting is the same as before, except a little bit different, which is 33% goes to the media, 33% goes to the tour card player vote, and 33% goes to us as fans, which is pretty awesome that we get to involve ourselves in this vote. Now, for the FPO field, I think you've got 2 clear people in this conversation, and that is Silva Saarinen and Caden Spurge. I know that probably sounds a little crazy considering where Silva's at right now, and that she had some success last year, but if you just look at the numbers just straight up, Silva averaged her average finishing position last year was 9.3. She's improved that to 3.9. So that's almost averaging podium. She picked up her first major win this year, and she improved her podium rate by 17%, her top 10 rate by 20%, and she went from being an early season threat to a late season contender to now she is an absolute menace at every event that she's at for the most part. So it's, I would say, a humongous improvement on Silva's end. And as good as all that is, I think here's why the answer should be Cadence Spurge. In 2024, Cadence did not qualify for the Tour Championship. She's currently sitting in 7th place. She also got her very first ever win on tour this year. And in 2024, she had 0 wins, 0 podiums, 0 top 10s, and only cashed 64% of the time that she played. Here in 2025, she has 1 win, 5 podiums, 9 top 10s, and a cash rate of 93%. That level of improvement is, in my mind, undeniable. Cadence is someone who had to be in the conversation for a lot of different events this year in terms of who you're picking to potentially be up there in the winner's circle. So I say both of them did an incredible job improving from season to season. And who's to say that Cadence can't do that again next year and kind of have a Silva 2024 to Silva 2025 year? But I'm going to have to give this one to Cadence just because the drastic improvement from year to year. For the MPO, once again, I feel like this is a trend, and maybe just because it's been easy to pick out. It's some of these awards are very hard to quantify. Like, what is improvement, and what do you consider to be the more important improvement over one another? Is it a win? Is it level of play? We see that very clearly here when we look at the MPO side, when I think your 2 biggest contenders are going to be Ezra Aderhold and Sullivan Tipton. And here's why it's difficult, because Ezra went from 35th on tour in 2024 to now currently being in 10th on tour. He got his first win this year. He's been in more top 10s than we've seen him been in before. And even though he has 1 less podium this year, it does feel like he's been in more contention this year than we've seen him in previous years, specifically compared to last year. So from a sheer accolades perspective, it feels like Ezra is the favorite here, especially with the win, because getting a win on the MPO side of the tour is very, very hard to do these days. However, Sullivan Tipton finished in 48th place last year compared to the 12th place that he is currently in. So that is a much bigger improvement from a ranking perspective. The only thing is, Sully doesn't have a win this year. He has podiumed only 1 time, and he's improved his top 10 percentage. So the question is, what do you value more, getting the win or just raw improvement? And I'm going to have to, for my personal pick, I'm going to have to lean on one specific statistic. And that's that Sully went from an average finish of 56.3 across 18 events last year. Tour events, not just like whatever events, tour events. So he was averaging 56.3. This year he's averaging 15.8. That is a almost 40 spot that is over a 40 spot improvement from year to year. That is, it'd be one thing to say just in general, whatever, but on the MPO tour for professional disc golf, that is impressive. And that is so drastic that I think win or no win, it's hard to ignore that, especially with how many times this year we've heard his name on coverage. So I have to give the win to Sully on that one. Now the final award is an interesting one, the Comeback Player of the Year. This is supposed to be for the players that have made a remarkable return to competition, whether it's from like an injury, a career slump, a life event, or they even quantify it as a return to the top. It's about resilience and determination, according to the Pro Tour. And so to be eligible for this, you must play in more than one DGPT event or PDGA Pro Major. 2025 tour card holders are going to make the nominations, and only tour card holders are eligible. So the actual tour card holders, they're going to be the ones who nominate the players for this here. And then the tour card holders, you got to be one to win. Voting is going to be 33% to the media, 33% to the fans, and 33% to the tour card player populace. So this is a hard one. All right. I looked up and down the list. I tried to remember every storyline I possibly could. It's a very subjective award. What do you value most when you think about a comeback? Is it, I didn't play well this year and I'm playing much better now, but wouldn't that be most improved? So I'm not sure what you want to call this. This can happen in the middle of a season. It can happen from season to season. It's very, very, I would say, difficult to quantify. And so for the FPO, I don't really even remotely know who I'm picking here. I looked, I don't have anyone that jumps out at me, and maybe I'm missing a storyline that I shouldn't be missing. Maybe if earlier this year Kristen would have left for a while and then came back and had played really significantly, that might be a good candidate for Comeback Player of the Year, but we're not going to see that with her coming back at all. I don't know. So what do you think? I mean, who in the FPO for you is the comeback player of the year? On the MPO side, I'm kind of in the same boat. I actually wouldn't even be surprised if they choose Paul McBeth for this one, because he gets his first win after 2 years. It was extremely significant, in terms of like the game and fans. So I could see them picking Paul just because it's his return to dominance. I mean, they literally have the wording in the award, like a return to the top. So that could be it. I really couldn't tell you on the MPO or the FPO side who's going to get this win, other than taking a stab in the dark that Paul could be someone on the MPO side. I cannot think of any significant injuries this year that someone has come back from that would be big. I mean, you've got, it's not an injury obviously, but Katrina Allen came back from having a baby, but she hasn't been extremely competitive. But then again, it's about showing resilience. It isn't necessarily about winning. So that could also be, one to consider. So I don't know. Let me know what you think in the comments, but down below, who do you think are the comeback players of the year for FPO and MPO? And what's your reasoning for picking them as the comeback players of the year? But, that's it for me today. I think these awards are really interesting to look at. I think there's value in thinking about who are winning these things. And I really love things like Rookie of the Year and Most Improved, because it can really showcase some incredible, improvement and talent that are coming up into the different fields, or who's just playing better year to year. And I enjoy digging into these a bit more. So, do you think I was wrong? Do you think I chose absolutely ridiculous people? Do you think there's a shot for like Niklas? Could Niklas, if he wins all 3 of these events, could he beat Ganonburg for Player of the Year? Let me know. Roast me in the comments. But I appreciate everyone taking the time to sit here and listen to our video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed looking into the 4 awards a little bit more closely. And we're on the final stretch, people. We got some playoffs. We got a major, not for the women, and we have the Tour Championship, and that's pretty much the rest of the season. So once again, thank you for watching. If you like what you saw today, make sure to leave a like on the video. Subscribe to the page is the best way that you can support the growth of the channel. And until next time, make sure you're playing some disc golf, watching some disc golf, and I'll catch you next week.